Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, at an official function recently, made cautionary statements about Nigeria's population explosion, with particular emphasis on the impact it could have on infrastructure as well as the economy, and of course the general well-being of Nigerians. Now, similarly, the Minister of National Planning and Budget, Senator Udo Udoma, has also expressed concerns about the dangers of uncontrollable or uncontrolled population growth, estimated at over 4 million per year. Now, the narrative from international observers is not consoling either. There are projections that Nigeria will have the third place as the world's most populated, that's the third place now, and the world's poorest people by 2050, with increasing poverty ratio put at 6 people per minute. That is a ticking bomb waiting to explode. Isn't that stating the obvious? Now, how do we tackle the impending crisis of population explosion? How do we manage and leverage on this demographic trend? What is the way forward? We will attempt to find answers with my guest in the studio. The program is Nigeria Today, and my name is Blessing Abu. Welcome. Yes, welcome. If you just joined us, the program is Nigeria Today. I'd like to welcome my guest, population statistician and Deputy Director Census, National Population Commission, Usman Maruf Kolapo. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Yes, from what the introduction said,
yes,
we have a crisis with population, no doubts. And just how many are we, if we say to put numbers? We've heard of 160, 170, 180, 190. We're even hearing some positions as 200. What exactly is Nigeria's population number?
Yes, you know, the last census was in 2006, and that is where you can talk about exact number. All others are based on projection, based on fertility rate of the country, and mortality rates. Very simple, something, birth and death plus migration, people coming in and going out, when you take this into consideration. But what we now do is you have a mathematical formula that we use in projecting the population, which assume that at certain rates, for now we are assuming about 3.2, that is the growth rate. And from 2006, and we believe that is the rate at which the population is growing. So when you use an exponential formula to project it, you are about 198 million. But the essence of projection is to get something that is near accurate. But census is the one that can actually give you the information.
Okay, well, we're still bothered on when to hold this census that is already elapsed, because I know the next one should have been in 2016, would have been 10 years.
Yeah.
Now it's almost 12 years after, and it's not as if we're going to do that in a hurry from the look of things. But then, the demographic situation is a potential. The number is a potential. But on the reverse side, too, is a threat.
Yeah.
Much of concern are we showing in this direction about the potentials anyway, as well as the threat?
Yeah, let us look at the potentials first. Yeah, we have a very huge population, and which shows actually, for now, we have a very large workforce. But what I mean by workforce is the number of, that is people between the ages of 15 to 64 that can be deployed to work, which is a potential. If you make use of them, then it can actually propel growth in the country. But if you look at the situation now, it might not be so. Not every hand that's supposed to work is working. So, and once someone doesn't have something that can engage him, he will engage him or herself in another thing, which is also the other aspect of it, that is the negative aspect of it. We have a very huge young population. Our population is described demographically as a very young population because we have, if I can't correct, we have about 42% of our population being between the ages of 0 and 14. And we have about 36% being between 15 and 64. These are the workforce. But not more than about, from estimate, not more than about 40% of the workforce is actually engaged. About 40% of them are engaged. Some are schooling, by the way. Some may not be doing anything. They may be because of one disability or the other, or they don't have
some of these pointers that you've raised, or the indices that you've raised, okay, for those who are working and for those who are in school, these are the same infrastructure we've had over time.
Yes.
Definitely they have been overstretched. So where does that leave this same population, the same number of those in school, those already working? Of course, that is for those where they have even the jobs in the first instance, and as well as other facilities that should actually help growth and maintain that equilibrium that we need to have in terms of development.
Yes. It is not the number that always should be of a concern, but the main concern should be the rates at which the number is rolling out. If you take something like China, India, all these have population that are above 1 billion, but they realize it sometimes very early, and they are now even having what we can call aging population.
I'm glad you used that word, Mr. Kolapo. They realize that. Have we as a nation, because one, we're being told, okay, sub-Saharan Africa, of course, Nigeria is inclusive, the fear now, the projection that by 2050, definitely, one, exponential high volume of, at least that is the number, and definitely aspect of poverty. This is what is being projected. Are we not going to run from this doomsday prediction? Have we realized that we need to?
We've realized it, but maybe we have not done enough. Because for you to even ask the question, it shows that there is people have now known about the threats for us to even discuss it now. But whether we have done enough is what should be the question. And to me personally, I don't think we have done enough, because the rate of growth, like now, our fertility rate is about 5.5, which shows an average woman wants to have about 5, that is average woman of 5 children. And some may say it is not. My forefather had 20, 40, and all of that is quite okay. Your forefather had maybe this room alone, and he now had 5 children. The 5 of you now share this room. You only have 1/5 of what your forefather had. Then you now say you want to have 5 children just like your father also have. Then you now discover that you are just going to have 1/25 of the land resources. But it might not work like that, because the interplay between population, science and technology, and resources, these are the interplay that determines whether there will be poverty or not. Because with science, let me give a typical example. If you look at something like Thailand, until recent, one of those things which you must also praise the government for. Until recent, something like Thailand was producing per hectare about 3 tons of rice per hectare, while Nigeria was producing about 0.4 of a ton from the same land area. But of recent, Nigeria have changed, because you may not know why within a very recent time we are able to meet up with our local rice production. It might not be the total number of things because of the science, seedlings, and all other things that was brought into it.
Technology brought it to assist.
But some of these projections that are being made is that everything being equal, remaining like this, growing at this rate, and moving with your science and technology at this rate, that is what all this projection about poverty and all other things is based on.
All right, Mr. Kolakwa, I know you said everything being equal,
Yeah.
but how equal is another kettle of fish for us to look at. Now, once upon a time, the NPC, that's Nigeria Population Commission, very vibrant about awareness and education on family planning, because I know this is one of the, we love to give birth. Especially when it's okay, maybe aspects of child mortality and all of those areas of concern, okay, who knows this one will survive? We even give names for things like that. How much of this has come to play in helping at least? Well, yes, it's good. They say, okay, you don't count children for the African. I know where, you know where they say the part of the country that says that, or anyway. But at the same time, it should be with caution. You should actually bring forth those you can cater for, those you can take care of. So how much of those awareness is still coming on, and how strong is that for families, culture, and all of that across the country to help out?
I think it's a very good question. See, the interplay, because first, Nigeria has a policy of not going into infanticide of, say, let us kill the children and all other things. So if the children are here, the first thing I want you to realize is that the mothers of tomorrow are already here. Even if you reduce your fertility to even 2, which we call replacement level, even if you reduce it to that level, the population of Nigeria will continue to grow, because the mother of tomorrow are already here on ground. So if you have, maybe I was telling you about age 0 to 14, which is about 36, is about 42% of our population. And when you look at it, if I'm correct, we are talking about, let's assume we have females, because when we are talking about fertility and all other things, we don't talk about men, we talk about females. Because the females, if you have maybe 10 million females, even if they give birth to one person, that is another 10 million added to the population. And that's not the rate at which people will be exiting from the population. So that's why I said, we have realized it, but maybe not too early, or maybe we have not done too much. But the best time to start what we should have started yesterday is now. So I think there must be concerted effort to increase the awareness. And you mentioned one thing, which is sociological, the way people think, which is very difficult to remove from human beings. And it takes a long period of time, relatively, for people to change, because culture changes, but it takes a longer time than just a scientific experiment. It has been established that even poverty influences high population, just like you have said. I don't know which one will survive. I don't know which one will actually be the president of Nigeria tomorrow. So and that's why you see that the gate man will have 15 children, but the person, the owner has only 2. Because one of those measures of poverty, immediately you're thinking is what your children will do for you. It's a poverty index. It means you are poor, because ordinarily you're supposed not to rely on your children apart from social support and all other things. You are expected to have earned income. You should supposed to have a pension benefits that will take care of you. So you wouldn't be saying, oh, if these children grow up, they will take care of me. But in Africa and with poverty, you would think like that. So it's not something that is easily changed. Unlike some countries where they make maybe a stiffer penalty for breaching it, but Nigeria is an appealing, and the appealing from the 1988 population population policy was to advise and encourage women not to have more than 4 children.
Okay. All right, Mr. Kolakwa, when we return from this break, the break actually is to see what our respondents on the streets actually thought about our topic when we put out the question to them. Talking about planning as other aspects of what we need to do to tighten whatever efforts we're doing, and if there are new strategies we need to employ to actually enhance our development in terms of harnessing this demographic dividend. We'll be right back after this break, and you're watching Nigeria Today, and our focus is on population growth and national development. Let's go to the street now.
overpopulation is an embodiment of scientific technological advancement for a country to become a superpower overpopulation. But you have to tackle two issues, what China did. Killing corruption, exterminating corruption within the strata of our political and social, cultural background. Then what? Putting ourselves into serious and incessant research, scientific and technological. Government has to be committed. Government has to expend more money. Government has to push out those who are capable of thinking positively, scientifically, to advance. These are two reasons.
Some countries do make use of their population, increase in population to their own advantage. But in this part of the world, you see, we hardly make use of our own population. Because normally when we see a population fast growing, what we should be seeing is a large amount of manpower. But when the manpower is not harnessed as it's supposed to be harnessed, so that's where we'll have an issue.
It's a problem. But when we put ourselves right, it will not be, it's not a problem. If we do the right thing at the right time, especially the distribution of wealth, distribution of things, justice, and all that you need. Population, we are not carrying ourselves on our head now. It's not that on ground.
If the government is able to learn from other countries like China and other developing countries, I believe we can make progress. If we're able to cut down corruption to a minimal level, we're able to manage corruption. We cannot eliminate corruption in this country, but we can minimize it drastically. I believe we can make progress by that.
Yeah, there you have a cross-section of Nigerians expressing their views on the topic of interest, which is on population growth and national development. Now, everyone really knows, okay, that just like we have already started talking about here too, about bigger nations or at least bigger, some other countries with bigger population than we are managing it well. We've used the example of China, we've used the example of India as well. Now, coming back to our own nation, now, population is key, no doubt, but providing the basics, amenities, infrastructure that will uplift whatever it is that we have in terms of number is what we're trying to drive at. Now, how do we get around this? Definitely, government is making its own efforts, but using the people, leaders of thought, and other members of the society to actually help this. How is the MPC looking out, getting its own numbers right, and at the same time helping to sustain national development?
Yeah. Population and sustainable national development, very key. I agree with what some of your
the respondents
actually, they know that there is impact, but there are certain things that may not be totally true. Such as believing that it is the government, it has to manage it and all of that things. First of all, the impacts start from the home. The impacts of the population, because we are talking about family size and all of that things. You see, there is this vicious circle of poverty, which is if you have low investments, you have low productivity. Low productivity will give you actually low outputs, and that outputs will now actually result into another low income. But how do you get into this? If you have a very large family, to invest on these children, let's just take a hypothetical example for the sake of our audience. You have 12 children, and you know that, oh, this is supposed to be a very good school that my children should go to, and you earn the same salary with me. We earn 100,000 each. I have 2, you have 12. Very good, their potential. I can decide to send my children to those schools, but you will now want to, you have the desire to send your children, but you now discover that your salary cannot allow you. So at the end, you may decide not even to send any one of them to take care of it. But the first thing is, see, we have increase, that is improvements in our healthcare system when you compare with the 50s, the 60s, and all of that things. Because some of those believe that I don't know how many will die. Like our own grandmothers and all of that things, we have 23, maybe 5 will survive.
But then, even those years, it was more like a status symbol. People say, you have farms that you could actually send those children to go work in.
That is where I'm going to. You see, because in agrarian society, where you are looking, because our forefathers were not foolish. They were actually utilizing the population for the needs of the time. Looking for male children and all of that is not because of any other things, to have enough people that will do the farming. But how many of us are going into the farm now? And as I stated the earlier time, if I should go back to what my grandfather had, he has about 10 children. Even if he has 10 children and he deployed them into the farm, and each one of them will just have 1/10 of that same land. Because the land, one thing is that the land is not expanding, if not shrinking. And I can say it's shrinking if you look at one of those things, take for example the Northeast, because of the footprint of human beings. We have footprints, we put pressure on our land and all of that things, you cut trees and all of that things because of poverty. They can preach, go and use gas, go and use this one, don't fall the tree, and all of that things.
So much pressure now
on it.
Infringing of
and when you now cut the trees, desertification comes in.
And people must move.
So that's why I'm now saying that even the land is shrinking. Because when there is desertification, relatively it means you cannot farm. The arable land now reduce.
So natural resources shrinking, as well as other infrastructure.
Even urbanization. Even urbanization. Because some of all those crises we are having today, some of them can be traced to our demographic, the way which our population is growing.
Well, that doesn't still stop the fact that there is an impending crisis with population in Nigeria.
Yes, even already we are feeling it.
Exactly. So what do we need to do as a matter of urgency? What are those low-hanging fruit that we must quickly push out?
First thing is education. Second thing is education. Third thing is education. The education I'm talking about is not about schooling alone. Like we rightly said, in the 80s, educating the women, allowing the family to know the advantage of having smaller family size. That if you have a smaller family size, you won't overspread your resources, and you'll be able to take and to know, and also to improve our healthcare system. Because when there is a very good healthcare system, you will be able to say it's okay. I have the assurance that even if I have 2 or 3, they will be able to survive. And you have seen practical example, people having 2 children and all the 2 have survived and all of that things. We are people that actually believe in God, but also will be able to relate to what is happening. The healthcare system, the education system, and actually talking to our religious leaders.
Great.
Talking to opinion leaders, because the education cannot be from governments.
And the education to be for it to just be planned and also to be delivered will still depend on us knowing the number. So perhaps where NPC is going to still help further is in actually even knowing the numbers by the way of census conduct.
Yes, and so I will go into it because even to plan without the census, who are you planning for?
What number are you planning for?
Apart from the number, yes, what number are you planning for? Whom are you planning for? In the same thing, you must be able to know who is going to benefit, because it's not only the mere numbers, even the distribution, the structure. Like now, many people don't know that we have up to say maybe 40% or 42% of our population are between the ages of 0 and 14.
Such that will propel development for us.
That is if we put the economy in the right position for us to be able to utilize them. Otherwise, they may be the one to destroy the economy.
I think that's where we hang it. From the look of things, we have more questions than the answer that were provided. Thank you very much. We'd like to appreciate Population Statistician and Deputy Director Census, National Population Commission, Usman Maruf Kolapo. Thank you for
you
joining us on the
welcome.
program.
So we
Let's
wish
hope
the
that we'll
government-
get to have our census very soon.
We hope that things should be put in place and we have our census. To me, I would say even by 2020, at most, we must have a census. And that's one of those
far away.
This
Those actually have been
2018.
used for even to plan the election for next year.
No.
Anyway.
There are lots of things that goes into census.
we know.
2019, 2020.
Okay.
But you should know that census is a very big thing.
It's another huge development.
It's second to war.
Yeah. Thank you very much once again, Mr. Usman Maruf Kolapo. We also like to appreciate you for watching. Tomorrow is another time to join us in the evening, 7:30 to be, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Well, you can actually watch this edition or any other edition at all online at youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Blessing Abu. Enjoy the rest of the day.